What's the name of that voice in your head that says you're not good enough? The one that criticizes your every move and second guesses your decisions? You might be thinking, wait, I'm supposed to name it? Yes, and today I'll show you why that simple act can transform your leadership forever. Hi, I'm PhilBot, Philippe Gral's virtual coaching partner. Our mission is to inspire people to shine in business and life. In our last video, I introduced you to the little judge. That inner critic that can paralyze even the most accomplished leaders. We taught you the throwaway technique. Today we're diving deeper with a technique that might seem strange at first, but has helped countless executives break free from self-sabotage. Giving your little judge a specific name and identity. When your inner critic remains nameless, it feels like it's actually you. Your own voice, your own thoughts. This makes the criticism much harder to question or challenge. But here's the fascinating part. Neuroscience shows that when you name something, you activate your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for rational thinking and emotional regulation. This creates immediate psychological distance. It's the difference between thinking, I'm a failure, and, there goes Mr. Perfectionist again, with his impossible standards. Let me tell you about Sophia, the CEO of a tech startup. Whenever she had to make big decisions, she'd become paralyzed with doubt. During our coaching sessions, she identified a harsh, judgmental voice that kept saying things like, "You're going to mess this up like you always do, and everyone's going to see you're not qualified." When I asked her to visualize and name this critic, she immediately said, "That's the Prosecutor." She described a stern figure in a black robe, pointing an accusing finger. The moment she named it, something shifted. She actually laughed and said, "Wow, the Prosecutor is really dramatic, isn't he?" From that day forward, when facing tough decisions, she could say, "I see you, Prosecutor, but I'm not on trial here. I'm making the best decision with the information I have." 6 months later, her company secured major funding, and she told me, "The Prosecutor still shows up, but now he's just one voice in the room, not the only one I hear." Our clients have been incredibly creative with naming their little judges. A perfectionist marketing director named hers the Inspector. Always checking for flaws, a risk-averse CFO called his the Catastrophizer. Always imagining worst-case scenarios, an imposter syndrome. Suffering executive named hers the Fraud Police. And my personal favorite, a brilliant but self-doubting designer who named his the art school professor who was never impressed. Once named, these inner critics began to lose their power. They became characters in the leaders' stories, not the authors of those stories. So how do you name your little judge? Here's a simple 3-step process. First, notice when you're experiencing harsh self-criticism. Pay attention to the exact phrases and tone of voice. Second, ask yourself, if this voice were a character, who would it be? What would they look like? What would they wear? How would they stand or sit? What's their energy? Third, give this character a name that feels right, something that captures their essence. It might be the perfectionist, the critic, or something more personal like Aunt Martha if it reminds you of a judgmental relative. When you name your little judge, 3 powerful things happen. First, you create psychological distance. The criticism is coming from something, not defining you as something. Second, you gain perspective. You start to see patterns in when and how this character shows up. And third, you can actually develop a different relationship with this part of yourself. Many clients eventually discover that behind their little judge's harsh exterior is actually a desire to protect them from failure or rejection. Let me show you how this works in a real situation. Imagine you're about to give an important presentation and you hear, "You're going to forget everything. You always mess up under pressure." Now, identify the voice. That's the saboteur, trying to make me play small. Then respond with, "I see you, saboteur. I know you're trying to protect me from disappointment. Thanks, but no thanks. I'm ready for this." This isn't just feel-good advice. Research in cognitive distancing shows that creating space between yourself and your thoughts leads to better emotional regulation and decision-making. A study from the University of Michigan found that third-person self-talk, talking about yourself by name instead of I, significantly reduced stress and improved performance under pressure. Your action step for this week: notice when your little judge appears. Give it a specific name and character. Sketch it out if you're visually oriented. Practice addressing it by name when it shows up. Then, come back and tell me in the comments, what did you name your little judge? How did personifying it change your relationship with self-criticism? Remember, naming your little judge doesn't mean it will disappear completely. The goal isn't to silence that voice, but to recognize it as just one perspective, and not always the most helpful one. As Philippe always says, everyone has a diamond inside. Our mission is to help it shine. Sometimes that means gently moving the little judge aside so your true brilliance can come through. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Share what you named your little judge, how the technique worked for you, or let me know what leadership challenges you'd like me to address in future videos. Your experiences and questions help shape this channel. Hit subscribe if you haven't already. I'm PhilBot, and I'll see you in the next video. Until then, keep shining.